يا منزل الآيات والفرقان بيني وبينك حرمة القرآن اشرح به صدري لمعرفة الهدى واعصم به قلبي من الشيطان.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. In yesterday's talk, we mentioned some important points pertaining to the parents, to the walidain, in the mistakes that are made in raising the youth, in raising the shabab. From those points were points related to tarbiyah, specific cultivation of the youth, meaning in the home, such as being a good example for the child, such as you as the parent doing that which you require from your child to do. And from those things were also things pertaining to the deen and cultivating your child upon righteousness. And from those things were the importance of choosing a righteous spouse before you even marry and before you even have children. And that is from the ways that you will, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, attain righteous children and righteous offspring. And in continuation, we will mention, insha'Allah ta'ala, 5 more points pertaining to some of the mistakes made by the parents in raising the youth, more specifically in these societies that we live in today, the Western societies to be specific. And so the 5th point, in continuing from yesterday's lecture, is the parents undermining one another when it comes to the upright upbringing and raising of the children. What that means is that when one parent sets rules for their children, and then that parent that has set those rules is not present, is not in the home, the other parent now undermines, for example, the father, and allows the children to do that which their father forbade them from. And that is from the greatest of mistakes and the gravest of mistakes that happens on both sides, whether it's the father or the mother. And for example, the father will forbid the children from watching television, and then the mother will whisper to the children, "Shh, let him leave and I'll let you watch television." The father forbids them from doing certain activities, to maybe play until they memorize their Quran or do their homework. And the mother will say, "Don't worry, when he leaves, you can play." The reason why that is detrimental to the upbringing of the children is that it teaches the child to deceive. It teaches that child to be disrespectful and not to respect that other parent that has set those rules for them. It will also teach that child that lying is okay, because when the child is very young and sees the mother or the father deceiving the other parent, then they will believe that it is okay to do the same. And so that child will then learn that behavior and practice that behavior first and foremost with their very own parents. Their parents who taught them to deceive and to lie to the other parent. And so it is detrimental, because once that child grows up learning to deceive, learning to hide, learning to lie, then when they reach a certain age, they will lie and deceive you as their parent with greater things, with bigger things that once you as a parent find out about, will be devastated. And at that point, the only one to blame will be yourself, because this is a learned behavior that they learned from you as their parent. And so us as parents, we belittle these type of things. We believe it's nothing but showing mercy to the child and allowing them to have fun and allowing them to do as they please. And we believe that that is the best way to raise our children. However, we ignore the fact that when we do these things, we are teaching our children indirectly to disobey and lie and deceive their father, for example, if it is the mother that is doing it, or the mother if the father is doing it. And so what is important and vital in order to rectify that, for that to not happen in the household, is that both parents should be on the same page when it comes to the rules and the boundaries that are set in the home, and that they agree on what they allow their children to do, and they agree on what they forbid their children to do. And they should not undermine one another. They should not allow the children to do the things that the other parent forbade them from doing while the other parent is not looking, or while they are sleeping, or while they are out of the home. Because as we mentioned, that will be a learned behavior and will become part of the personality of that child. And so now when we see children by the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, at school, lying and deceiving and cheating and doing things behind the teacher's back, and they're getting in trouble and they're getting sent home, many times this is due to them learning this behavior from the home. They learn these behaviors and these personality traits, and they learn it from the home and they learn it from their own parents. Whereas if the parents taught them honesty and to be truthful and to never lie and the evil of lying, then that child would know that not only at home that is how they have to be, but also in public when they go to school and when they're playing with their friends, etc., that they should be honest people, they should be truthful, and they should never deceive. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. The sixth point in the mistakes made when raising the youth and the children is when the parents wish to discipline their child or forbid them from something that they should not be doing, that they discipline that child or they tell them not to do something without teaching them why they should not be doing that thing. And so they will tell them, do not do this and do not do that. Or they will see something from their child or a youth that they know they should not be doing, a wrongdoing or a mistake, and they will punish them by sending them to their room or otherwise. Never teaching that child why it is that they've been punished or why they are being told not to do such and such. And the reason why that is detrimental to that child and to the development of that child is because all they will know is that they are getting in trouble, but they are not learning why they are getting in trouble. Especially when the child is very young and before they've developed mentally and they don't understand right from wrong, or they may know right from wrong, but they don't know the severity of the wrong that they've done, they simply get punished. And so this becomes then a reason for that child to grow animosity towards their parents, to grow in their heart an anger towards their parents, and to then begin, as in the previous point, to do these things as an act of rebellion. That child will begin to rebel against their parents. They will begin, especially when they reach the age of 13, 14, the teenage years, they will begin doing things not because they want to do it, but because they've been forbidden from doing so. And they will do those things simply to harm their parent. And we see this many times. It happens many times where there are young boys and young girls rebelling and doing things that they know they should not be doing only because they've been forbidden and they've been punished over and over again without actually being taught why they should not be doing this. And so, for example, our sisters from a young age, they are taught to wear the hijab. They are taught to cover themselves. However, they are not taught the wisdom of the hijab. They are not taught the importance of modesty and shyness. They are not taught of the harms that are outside and the people that wish to harm her, and why the hijab is a benefit for her and why it is a protection for her. Rather, if a little bit of hair is showing and she's outside, she's slapped in the back of the head, fix your hijab, thinking that this is a means of rectification. That will cause that girl to grow up to hate the hijab. That will cause that girl to know or to believe that the hijab is a form of oppression or a form of control or whatever else the kuffar are now doing to convince our sisters that the hijab is about. And so whereas as parents, we had the opportunity to teach our daughters modesty and shyness and chastity and the importance of the hijab when they were young, and to cause them to love the hijab, instead we would beat them or hit them or punish them for not wearing the hijab correctly. And then now the kuffar have used that as an opportunity to misguide them. And now we see the fruits of that and the damage that that has caused, where all you have to do now is open social media only to see our sisters now in their 20s and 30s mocking the hijab, attacking the hijab, purposely wearing hijab and then removing it on camera as an act and a form of rebellion against the hijab, because the hijab was not introduced to her in a way that would have caused her to love the hijab and understand the importance of the hijab. Likewise, the salah. And this applies to both the boys and the girls, teaching them the importance of the salah when they are young, teaching them the reward of the salah when they are young, teaching them that the salah is from the pillars of Islam and from the most important things to the Muslim, instead of beating them and punishing them. Because what that will cause now is a group of youth who are now against salah and against anything Islamic. And from the most hated of places to them is the masjid. The most hated of places to the youth now is the masajid. And that is because the way khair was enforced and enjoined on the youth was in a bad way. And now that has caused now the youth to rebel against the religion and rebel against salah and rebel against anything Islamic. And if they hear about a muhadara, or a lecture, it is from the most detested of things to them. And that is because we did not introduce the love of Islam, the love of salah, the love of doing good, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was not introduced to them in a beautiful manner that will cause them to love the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The seventh point in the mistakes made in raising the youth, especially in these times that we're currently living in, is not preparing them properly for adulthood. Meaning not preparing the boys for being men or becoming men, and not preparing the girls for becoming women. We say, oh, he's just a kid. Oh, she's just a kid. Oh, they're still young, and they're 20 and 25 years old. If a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old is still a baby, when will they become adults then? And so, what we see nowadays is that the youth are left to be children playing video games, having fun, up until their adult years. And you will find now 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds sitting down playing video games. Whereas when we were younger, playing video games was something specifically for children. Young children played video games, not grown men. But now we have grown men playing video games as if they're children, and this has become normalized. But what is not being recognized is that this is due to how they've been raised and left to behave as children and left to behave as little kids and not thinking of the things that are important, not thinking about starting a family, becoming a father. Those things are far-fetched to them. You'll find a 30-year-old telling you, I'm not ready for marriage. I'm not ready to raise a child. And that is because he was not prepared to be a father, and he was not prepared to raise children. What he was prepared to do was sit and play 2K all night until 5 a.m. until Fajr. That was what he was prepared to do. That is the reality that we're living in today. That is the reality. And so it is not shocking that the boys nowadays, or even our girls, are not prepared for adulthood. And they haven't been properly prepared for adulthood. And so what is the boy supposed to be prepared to do? How do we prepare our boys to become men in these societies? The fathers are to teach their sons about manhood, as we mentioned in yesterday's lecture. They are to teach them about responsibility. They are to teach them about fixing things around the house, going out to do groceries from a young age, going to buy things for the home. That a man works hard and earns a good living in a halal manner. And first and foremost, that son has to see that from his father. He cannot see his father sitting at home, and the only time that he goes out is to sit and chit-chat in a coffee shop and living off of welfare. That is not what a son is supposed to see. A son is supposed to see, before he is even taught, his father earning an honest living, even if he earns little, that he's working hard, waking up in the morning, providing for his family. He has to be the example for his child to see that. And that is how the son learns responsibility. That is how a son will then become prepared when he will begin starting a family for himself, that is his responsibility. He will know that is his responsibility, that he has to provide for his wife and provide for his children. But when that son is left to play video games and sit and watch Netflix for 8 hours a day, and then go outside and play basketball with his friends, and then come home and sleep over at his friend's house on the weekend, and come home and he's fed, food is put in front of him, and after he eats, he leaves what he ate there in front of him, and he goes to sleep, and he's not woken up for Fajr, and so on and so forth, and he's left like that, when will that child ever be prepared to be an adult? And we find now 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 35-year-olds still living with their mothers, being cooked for, being taken care of. Their mothers are breaking their backs. Their mothers are working, actually, providing for them as a 30-year-old man and a 35-year-old man. And that is because he was not prepared to be a man, still being taken care by his own mother and his own father, not able to start a family of his own. And that reality is something that we see everywhere, not just in Columbus, not just in Toronto, not just in Canada, America. This is widespread everywhere, especially those of us living in the West. And so the boy from a young age is supposed to be, at least the thoughts are to be planted into his head, that one day you will be a man, that a man provides for his family, that a man does not earn money in a haram manner, that a man should not be sitting at home living off of the government. That is not what a man does. That a man goes out and works hard. That a man preserves his salawat, He prays in the masjid. From a young age, the child should be taught these things. And a young boy should be given responsibilities, at least in the household. For example, teach him to, if he has younger siblings, to tell them to behave. You have to put these thoughts in his head from a young age so that he grows up maturely and that he knows that one day this will be his responsibility and this will be his reality. And a child, a boy who is raised like that, you will find him wanting to get married at a very early age. By the age of 16, 17, 18, he's ready for marriage. And he wants to get married. He has a desire to get married. But the one who's sitting playing video games and then the parents are saying he's just a kid, that one has no desire to get married. He will not have a desire to have children, raise children, and so on and so forth. They're also supposed to be taught hygiene and cleanliness, to take a shower, to clean, how to properly clean themselves, to wear clean clothes once they go outside, to look presentable, and not go outside in public with the same clothes that they woke up in. These things are supposed to be taught to young boys from a young age, a very young age. How to dress, how to smell nice, to wear ether and cologne and perfume, wear a nice thobe, iron their clothes. They're supposed to be taught these things from a young age. And we should not find a 20-year-old and a 25-year-old walking with wrinkled clothes, wrinkled thobes, not knowing that this is not acceptable for a man. Because when you're 20 years old, you're a man. You're not a boy anymore. And we find 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds not knowing how to do laundry, not knowing how to make ghusl. And the reality of ghusl, you would be shocked if you were to ask 20-year-olds and even 30-year-olds that if they are in a state of janabah, in the state of major impurity, that they pray salah. They have no idea that they have to make ghusl. These are Muslim children who grew up in a Muslim household with Muslim parents. Never in their lives were they taught these things. Never in their lives were they taught these things. And so who then will teach their child to do these things? Who then will teach their child to do these things? Likewise, our girls being taught to be women, to be taught how to take care of a home, to be taught how to raise children, and the idea, plant the idea in their head that they will be a mother one day, and to make that beloved to her. And one of the mistakes that the mothers do is that they make marriage and having children seem like a burden to their daughters, and causing them to hate marriage and causing them to hate the reality of having to raise children, especially when the mother is a single mother, raising a number of children by herself. A girl will see her mother struggling and she will not want that same reality for herself, and so she will delay marriage or even reject marriage altogether and not wish to be married at all. And so a young girl should be taught modesty and shyness and hijab and not speaking to men and not speaking to men who are foreign to her. These things should be taught to her from a young age, not left for her to figure out on her own. Not left for her to figure out on her own. And now we see a phenomenon. Many sisters nowadays who may want to get married, complaining about the current state of the brothers, saying, and many of us most likely have heard this, I don't want to be his mother, cleaning up after him every day. You know, if he eats food, he does not know that he has to take it from where he is eating. He does not know how to wash his own dishes, and this is a reality. Yes, the wife takes care of her husband. Yes, the wife cooks for her husband and cleans her household. But to take care of a grown man the same way she's taking care of her children, that is not acceptable. And that reality exists because the boy was not prepared to be a man in a proper manner. And every time he would do something, and we see this often, in our communities that if he is to be disciplined for something that he's done, the other parent, usually the mother, will say, no, leave my son alone. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Always letting him pass. Meaning that boy will grow up to never be held accountable for anything. He's never been held accountable for the things that he's doing in the house, in his own home, with his parents. And so now when he grows up as an adult, he now does not know how to take accountability of anything that he does. He does not know how to take accountability for anything that he does. And this leads to divorce in marriages many times. This leads to divorce in marriages many times. These learned personalities and these personality traits that the other spouse cannot live with and cannot deal with, it starts at the home. And if these boys and girls are prepared in a better way for adulthood, then many of the mistakes and the problems that we find in marriages would be lessened. Would be lessened. And one of the detriments now that we see in society, one of the great harms that we see in society now, because the boys and girls are not being prepared to be men and women, that the kuffar and their agenda has now become successful with the Muslim youth in changing their gender roles, making the women or the girls believe that behaving like men and being aggressive and talking aggressive and being rude, that this is praiseworthy. That this is a praiseworthy thing. That you should be aggressive and being soft and being gentle and being quiet as a woman and being feminine and gentle is not something that is good or praiseworthy. That this is something that is not praiseworthy for a girl to do. And so now we find many sisters rebelling and fighting against being feminine and being soft and being gentle. And on the opposite end, we now see a lot of boys being told that being soft and being gentle and being feminine is something praiseworthy. That is something praiseworthy. And now that is why we see boys, even Muslims, all over social media, dancing like women. Dancing like women, moving their hips side to side as if they're females. Where does this come from except the brainwashing of the kuffar to make them believe that this is acceptable? Where is the father in that boy's life to tell him that this is not acceptable behavior for a man? Where is that father who is supposed to teach that child and that boy that men do not behave like this? That men do not get on social media dancing like women. That is not what men do. And this is the detriment. Now, when we neglect our responsibility in raising our children the proper way and preparing the boys to be men and preparing the girls to be women, the kuffar now have the ability to teach your children for you. And they will teach them the opposite of what you should have been teaching them. And that is why we see a lot of the harms we now see in our societies. A lot of the harms we see in our societies now, it is because of the neglect of the parents in raising these children at a young age to be men and to be women. To be men and to be women. The eighth point regarding the mistakes that are made in raising the youth nowadays in our societies is preventing them from marriage and putting obstacles in their way. Preventing their youth from getting married and putting obstacles in their way, not allowing them to get married. And there is a hadith on the behalf of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, whereby the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, إِذَا خَاطَبَ إِلَيْكُمْ, and in another narration, إِذَا جَاءَكُمْ مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ فَزَوِّجُوهُ إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ, and in another narration, فَسَادٌ عَرِيضٌ. that there is a hadith on behalf of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, may Allah be pleased with him, whereby the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if an individual comes to you, or in another narration, if an individual comes and proposes to you, meaning to your family, for your daughter in marriage, asking for your daughter's hand in marriage, مَنْ تَرْضَوْنَ دِينَهُ وَخُلُقَهُ, one whom you are pleased with his deen, and by deen, meaning his religiosity, the way he practiced his religion, that you are pleased, the fact that he prays 5 times a day, that he appears like a Muslim, that he has taqwa, that he is pious, that he is known in the community for being a good man, you have no issues with that. وَخُلُقَهُ, and likewise his manners, his behavior, how he speaks, how he respects elders, how he respects those around him, his friends and the people in the community, you are also pleased with that. فَزَوِّجُوهُ, and the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, then give to him your daughters in marriage. The one whom you are pleased with his deen and his manners and his conduct and his behavior, give your daughters in marriage to him. إِلَّا تَفْعَلُوا, and if you do not do so, تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ, meaning takun here, taqa, a great fitna, a great trial will befall, a great tribulation will befall, a great calamity will befall. وَفَسَادٌ عَرِيضٌ, and great corruption, widespread corruption will also take place. And what is meant by this hadith, as the ulama have mentioned, is that zina will take place in society. The fasad here, the corruption here that is being mentioned, when those whom you are pleased with their deen and their religion come to you for your daughters and their hand in marriage, and you reject, and you say things like, well, he's not the same tribe, he's not the same race, she's not ready, she has to finish her high school, her undergraduate, her master's, her second master's, her PhD, her second PhD, and she's 45 by the end of it. That's when she will be ready for marriage. All these obstacles that we put in place, the Prophet ﷺ warned us that a great trial and tribulation will take place, a huge fitna and a huge widespread corruption will take place in society, and anyone who believes that that is not taking place today is kidding themselves. When we tell ourselves that our children, who are youth or young adults, are not ready for marriage, and we convince ourselves that they are still too young or not mature enough yet, or they don't know how to be mas'ul, they don't know how to be responsible yet, and they're 18, 20, 22, 24, around there, and they are still committing zina behind our backs. They are still falling into sin behind our backs. We're oblivious because we choose to ignore this reality. Especially a child that is living in this society, a youth that is living in this society. That while we are busy looking for the closest of cousins, or the closest tribe, or the closest clan for our child, they're busy committing zina. So if the child is able to commit zina, then you think he's not ready for marriage? If the son and daughter are falling into sins, do you not believe that they are ready for marriage? And if you yourself as a parent believe that that child is not ready for marriage, then that is only evidence of your lack of preparing them for marriage, which was the previous point. When you did not prepare your daughters to be mothers and wives, and you did not prepare your sons to not be ready to be men and husbands, now you use the excuse that they are not ready. Well, that them not being ready is because of your own fault, because you did not make them ready. You left them playing video games, you left them watching movies, You left them watching this and that and playing basketball and playing this and playing that, not teaching them to be prepared for marriage and to be prepared to start their own lives and to find good income and so on and so forth. And so the reality now is, as parents, we will have to ask ourselves, how important is it that we delay and prevent our children from getting married while we are busy looking for the right tribe or the right individual or the right this person and that person or my friend's son and my friend's daughter and someone back home and etc., etc. While we are busy doing that and our youth are falling into the greatest of calamities, whereby the increase, not just the increase of zina, but the increase of children being born outside of marriage has only increased in our societies. And the reality is, it has become normalized actually. Whereby 10 years ago and 20 years ago, if we were to hear of a Muslim sister, young Muslim sister, falling into zina and having a child outside of marriage, that was a calamity. Maybe that news would reach all over the United States. It was something not common. It was not something common that happened. Now it is so common that it's not even spoken about. It is so common that it is not even spoken about. It is almost as common as those who have children in marriage. That is how it has become. And these are the fruits of what this hadith is talking about. The fasad, the widespread fasad that is being spoken about is this: the increase of zina, the increase of children being born outside of marriage, women going their entire lives without having children, children not even being born into the ummah, and the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam no longer growing. We see nowadays, I remember myself when I was in my teens, many people getting married by the age of 18, 19, 20. Now that is unheard of. Unheard of. 30 years old, not married. 35 years old, not married. 40 years old, not married. Why? I'm looking for that specific one. That tribe. All these different obstacles. I'm not ready yet. This person has 100K in the account. I'm not ready yet. What is it that you're waiting for? What is it exactly that you're waiting for? No, I need to make this amount of money. No, I need to do this and I need to do that first. All these other things. طيب, how is your iman? How is your iman when you're delaying marriage for that long? Or the parents, how are your children's iman? Because the sins of the eyes and the sins such as zina in this society is from the greatest of reasons why the youth, their iman is low. And so if you care and you are concerned for your child, then you will do anything to protect your child from falling down that path. Once you see that they've reached age, help them with whatever you can. Even if it is that you find a good sister for them, or if they find a good sister and they don't have to move in together right away, and that they can be together in a halal manner, protected from falling into these sins, then do so as a parent. What will you lose? The alternative is the chance, the high chance, that your child will be falling into sins and you not knowing about it. That is the alternative once you live in these societies. That is the trial that the youth go through in these societies. That is the tribulations and the calamities that they see surrounding them on a day-to-day basis. Every day they go outside, they see fitna. Every time they're at home, they see fitna. Every time they open their phone, they see fitna. So you as a parent have to be conscious of this. And you have to know that it is your responsibility to protect your child from falling into that. And not to say, no, because of our customs, because of our culture, because of our this and our that, I'm not going to. Well, the alternative is one day you will have to face what many parents have faced living in these societies when they see that their child has now gotten another girl pregnant, or their daughter has become pregnant by someone she does not even know. This is a reality. This is a reality happening on a daily basis in our societies. Whether we are aware or not is another thing. But that is a reality that is happening. Parents who thought they were doing something good for their children, encouraging them to do university and getting a master's and getting a good job and saving money first, which is good. There is nothing wrong with that. However, at the cost of their iman, at the cost of their diyana, their deen, their religion, that child or that young man, that young woman is not safe while they're in these societies. And so preventing them from marriage and throwing all of these obstacles in their way is from the greatest of mistakes that one can do in this time. It is from the greatest of mistakes that one can do in this time and age that we are living in. The 9th point in the mistakes made in raising the youth nowadays is interference in marriages. Interference in marriages. And so for those who allowed their children to get married once they reached a certain age, and this usually happens from the mothers, the mother-in-laws, where they interfere into the marriages of either their daughters or their sons. And by interference we mean, even if they're not physically in the home telling them what to do, advising either their son or their daughter with bad advice, with things that are detrimental to their marriages, telling their daughters do this and do that and be this and be that. If he tells you to do this, don't listen to him. Advice like this, which ruins their daughter's relationship with her husband, and which will cause her daughter to be divorced in the end. Instead of advising her with good, instead of telling her to do good and to be patient, etc., etc., she is the cause for ruining her daughter's marriage by giving her bad advice. Likewise, interfering in how they raise their own children. So now their daughter has gotten married or their son has gotten married, and she's telling them what to do and what not to do. And when she either visits them or they visit her, she's telling them how to raise the children, and that causes conflict between the spouses, eventually leading to divorce. And so this is from the gravest of mistakes that happen, which then cause broken families, and is from the biggest of reasons of divorce nowadays. One of the greatest reasons of divorce nowadays is the interference of the in-laws, whether it be from the brother side, the husband side, or the wife's side. That parents, if it's a daughter that they've given away, then you've given her away to this man. That means you've chosen this man for your daughter, and you've trusted this man with your daughter. And now he is her leader. He is her husband. He is the leader of her household. You are no longer the one who tells her what to do. That is it. If you have other children, those are the ones you still continue to raise and make decisions for. However, your daughter, who has now gotten married, you no longer make decisions for her. And if it is your son that has now gotten married, you do not interfere and tell him what to do in his marriage and this and that, causing them problems in their marriages, causing them problems in their marriages. The 10th and final point regarding the mistakes made in raising the youth nowadays in this society is the abandonment of hijrah. The abandonment and the complete neglect of hijrah, leaving these lands. And the reality is we've become so accustomed to living in these lands, for those of us who've come here from our own countries, that we love it here. We no longer love where we came from. We love it here and we believe it is better to be here. And we don't even imagine a day where we are not living in America or Canada or the UK. However, the reality is the matter of hijrah is a very, very, very important matter. For all of the things that we've been mentioning today and yesterday, the evils that exist in these societies. And obviously hijrah is for those who are capable. Those who are capable. those who have the ability to leave here and go to a country where there is peace, a Muslim land, then they should do so to save themselves even before their own children. Because what we are dealing with nowadays in these societies is no longer protecting our youth from simply sinning or bad friends. The reality we're dealing with now is if this child will be Muslim in 5 years or not, or in 1 year or not. And the amount of youth that have left the religion of Islam, meaning born into this religion, Somali, Arab, Pakistani, whatever the case is, Afghani, leaving the religion of Islam, announcing it all over the internet. I am no longer Muslim and I hate Islam. That is what we are dealing with today. That is the danger of you residing in these lands. It is no longer smoking and drinking and these things. There are greater trials that exist today that our youth are facing that are very, very detrimental if we choose to live here. And the reality is, many of us, we do what we call in Somali, daqan alis. And we see that as a solution. That we take the child back to where they've come from, their home country, for a year, a few months, a summer, a few years, and then we bring them back. There are benefits in that, and there are also harms in that. The harms in that is that when you take that child there and leave them there alone, that causes huge trauma for that child. A child that was raised in your household, lived with you, lived with his mother and father, his siblings, and then you took them there, that child will not benefit from his time there. Because the entire time he's there, it's as if it's a prison sentence. He cannot wait until his sentence is over to go back and do all the things he was missing. And many times we witness those who have been sent back home to memorize Quran or to learn their culture, learn their language, and they come back, they become the worst in society. They become the worst of the youth in society. And the reality is because the trauma and how bad that affected them, being alone in a society that they don't know anything about, people they don't know anything about, and the trauma that that causes them, and the harm that that causes them, especially girls who go there and sometimes are harmed there because they don't have their father around them to protect them. When they come back here, they become the worst in society. And that is due to emotional abuse or emotional traumas that they went through. And so if you take your child there, the best thing to do is to be there with them. If you cannot be there with them, then the alternative, that is what we call just a temporary fix. A temporary fix. You take them there for 1 year, 2 years, bring them back to square one. It's as if they never left. It's as if they never left. All that has been done is money was wasted. And that child that maybe you could have even saved them while they were here with you, now because of that decision, you are now dealing with a child that cannot wait to get back into what they were in, or maybe not have been in even before they left, but they cannot wait to do the things that everyone else in these societies are doing. And that is because now they still have social media, they still keep in contact with their friends here, they still see what everyone is doing, they're still up to date with what is going on. So the temporary fix is not a solution. To take your child back home for 1 day, for 1 month, 1 year is not a solution. Rather, you have to, as we mentioned in the previous lecture, part 1 of this lecture, that it starts in the home. That it starts in the home, the proper tarbiyah of that child starts in the home. And if one is able, that they should make hijrah and leave these lands and take their families back home or back to a Muslim land where they can at least be in a society where we won't say the things that are here are completely not there, but it is less. The fact that they are hearing the adhan every day, the call to prayer that is helping them go to the masjid and pray, is a great benefit. A great benefit that is undermined and belittled. I myself have been in Saudi Arabia for the past 8 years, 9 years, And sometimes when I come back to Canada, I forget it's Salah time because I'm used to hearing the adhan. I forget it's Salah time. If someone doesn't tell me it's Dhuhr, Asr, I'll forget because I'm too used to hearing the adhan. So being in that society where you don't have to rely on a timetable to tell you what time Salah is, or a phone app to tell you when the Salah is a great benefit. When the entire society or majority of society is worshipping Allah in the Masjid, when you feel like you're a Muslim, you see the symbols of Islam, you see Eid being celebrated publicly, these societies benefit you as a Muslim. And so the doubt that some people now have is that even the Muslim countries now are bad, so where will we even take our children? Any Muslim country is better than here, brothers and sisters. Any Muslim country is better than these societies. And yes, there's evil everywhere. We don't deny that there's evil everywhere. However, the evils that we've mentioned and the harms that we've mentioned in the last few lectures that exist in these societies are not comparable to what exists in the Muslim lands. And the reality is, whatever evil exists in the Muslim lands only came from here and was imported over there. That is the reality. And so to best protect your children, you have to just do what you are capable of doing. To protect your child, because you know that they are an amana. They are a trust upon you as a father and as a mother that you will be asked about on the Day of Judgment. That you will be asked about the decisions you made regarding those children. What you allowed these children to do in these lives. The societies and the environments that you kept them in, the choices that you've made, you will be asked about every single one of them after you die. And the benefit for the parents for raising righteous children and making sure that their children are righteous and grow up in a righteous environment is that after you die, the righteous child will be making dua for you. And the good that you taught them, they will continue to do that good, and it will be sadaqatul jariyah for you. But if you raise children that you neglected, and you neglected their tarbiyah when they were young, and when they were old, you did not tell them anything. After you die, who will be making dua for you? After you die, who will be doing good deeds so that you may share in their reward? You won't find that. You will find people who will be fighting over the inheritance that you left behind, and that's it. You will be nothing but a memory to those children that you left behind, that you struggled to raise and work for and provide for, but because they grew up in these societies, you will not have that importance in their lives and in their hearts. So with that, we conclude the lecture on the mistakes in raising the youth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give tawfiq to us as parents, to do good towards our children, and to raise them upon Islam and upon good behavior and good conduct. And that we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for each and one of the parents who have youth that are living in these societies. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect their youth from harm, the hidden of it and the apparent of it. That Allah preserve them and guide them and keep them on the straight path and cause them to love the religion of Islam and protect them from the doubts of the disbelievers, the doubts and the misguidance and the traps that they have laid out for our youth. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide also the parents to aid their youth in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.